Leaders' questions. I call on Deputy O'Keefe.
Corla, I think it's fair to say that the two biggest problems facing many households are unemployment and problems with mortgages and personal debt. What we've seen is a fiasco of a jobs initiative and the unemployment figures as bad as ever. And in relation to mortgage debt, nothing is happening. We left behind us the Cooney report, and I have here
Deputy O'Keefe, with that interruption, please. Thank you, Deputy. Sorry, Deputy, please proceed.
You know the situation. You took on the job. And to be quite honest, those who have distressed mortgages today don't want history lessons, they want solutions from this government. I left behind me in the department a set of actions. That the Minister of Social Protection could have implemented in the spring to help people in distressed mortgages by improving the mortgage interest supplement. What did we get from the government?
Sorry, please. Thank you, Deputy.
What did we get from the government? Instead of action on the report that was there, they parked it and they set up the Keane Group. The Keane Group reported. What did we get? A working group. Another working group to look at the issue all over again. 8 weeks after the Keane report has been published. What do we find in the EU IMF? That sometime next year, the end of March, you will publish an insolvency bill. And then you'll have to bring it through the houses, and then you'll have to implement it. So
you didn't publish one in 14 years.
Without interruption. Without interruption. Please proceed. Please proceed, Deputy.
We did.
Would you please allow the Deputy to make his point?
We published it last few weeks, but obviously you weren't listening. Now the reality is, Tánaiste, that more advice for people with financial difficulties doesn't solve anything, because if you don't have the money to pay, you don't have money to pay, and all the advice in the world won't solve the problem. What I would ask you to do today is to spell out the exact actions that you're going to implement to help people in distressed mortgages pay their mortgages.
Thank you, Deputy.
And I'd ask you further to explain how, in all the leaks that we're getting, there has been no mention about dealing with this issue, which is of paramount importance to ordinary people who are trying to struggle from day to day.
Thank you, Deputy. Tánaiste.
Yeah, you did leave a lot of things behind, Deputy O'Keefe. You left behind a broken country, broken public finances, and broken morale. You also left behind you in relation. You also left behind you in relation to mortgages.
He never supported that.
Would you please
you also left behind you in relation to mortgages. You left behind a lot of people who are in mortgage distress. And as you said, you left behind the Cooney report. The Cooney report, as you know, Deputy, one of the things we discovered was not sufficient to deal with the mortgage difficulties that people are facing. And that is why the new government asked the Keane Group to bring forward a new set of recommendations as to what needed to be done to address the mortgage difficulties that are facing people. We brought the Keane report into this House to hear the words of wisdom from yourself and from other deputies who wanted to contribute to this issue and to offer either added solutions or alternative solutions. All of that is now being considered by the government, and we are bringing forward proposals which will be considered by government within the next couple of weeks. They will include measures such as mortgage to rent schemes. They will include work that is being done by the Minister for Justice in bringing forward a personal insolvency bill, and they will bring forward a range of measures which will provide practical solutions to people who are in mortgage difficulty in a way that your government failed to do over the period of time that you were in office.
Deputy O'Keefe.
Tánaiste, there were a lot of good things in the Cooney report. And one simple change would have helped an awful lot of people, and that is to abolish the 30-hour rule, which means that where you have a two-income family going to a one-income family and one of them is working for more than 30 hours a week, under the present rules, you can't get mortgage interest supplement. We were making other constructive changes to mortgage interest supplement. They could have been done, and you could have done more to build on that. What you did is you did nothing. N-O-T-H-I-N-G, nothing in the meantime. Now, you say that what you're offering the Irish people and what this government seems to be offering, rather than dealing in a practical way to enable people to pay their mortgages, you seem to be saying that they have to hand over their houses and rent them back. That they have to rent them back from the banks. Obviously, this is hitting home.
Sorry, yeah, please.
Obviously, this is hitting home with the government.
Supplementary question, please.
And the second solution, you seem to be offering.
Sorry, please proceed, Deputy, without interruption. Thank you.
Our bankruptcy proceeding. Now, most ordinary people.
You put a question, Deputy.
Most ordinary people just want a way to be able to financially pay their mortgage and hold on to their house. What are you going to do about that to ensure that for people who are in temporary unemployment, that is the way they'll be able to resolve their issue, and that they won't have to give up houses, and that they won't have to go into bankruptcy?
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Yes, there were some good recommendations in the Cooney report. What I said about the Cooney report was that the Cooney report was not sufficient to deal with the range of difficulties that people who are in mortgage distress have had. And let's not forget that they're in mortgage distress because of the difficulties that you put them in and your colleagues put them in, Deputy O'Keefe. Now, this government is dealing with that issue. We've had the Keane Group look at the issue. We have had, following the publication of the Keane Group report, we have had a round of consultation with people who are interested and who are active in the whole area of providing support to people who are in mortgage distress. We've heard what members of this House have had to say about additional or further measures that could be taken. Those are being worked on. The issue is before government. This government is quite clear in its approach in relation to the mortgage issue, and that is that we want to ensure that people won't lose their home in this crisis. And we're determined that we will take the steps that are necessary to ensure that that happens. And there are a range of recommendations, both in the Keane report and additional matters that have been discussed here and elsewhere, which we're going to progress. And the objective of that, Deputy O'Keefe, is that people will be able to remain living in their own home. Because the approach, bear with me now, this recession is not going to last forever. And this recession is not going to last forever because of the way in which this government is dealing with it and getting the country out of the hole that you put it in. But while we are doing that, there are many families in this country who have difficulty paying their mortgages, who are in mortgage distress, and we're going to ensure that those people, as far as is practically possible, will not be put out of their home, will be able to continue living in their own home, will get the kind of support that is necessary in order to ensure that their mortgage distress is dealt with. Government is considering both what has been said here, the advice that we have got from the various groups and organisations that we have met in the meantime since the publication of the Keane report, and we will announce those measures when government have made final decisions on them.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No, sorry. Please resume your seat. Thank you. Sorry, would you please resume your seat? Deputy O'Keefe, you're not on air, so would you please resume your seat? Thank you. Deputy, please. Will you resume your seat? Deputy O'Keefe, will you resume your seat? Deputy O'Keefe, when I ask you to resume your seat, will you please do so? Deputy MacDonald, thank you.
Gurmagat the Ceann Comhairle. Tánaiste, yesterday the Taoiseach promised that he'd make an honest man of you. Now, some would say that he might have his work cut out. Given the amount of promises the Labour Party has broken since entering office. Before the election, Labour were crystal clear. You promised not to cut child benefit. You promised not to introduce student fees or increase the registration charge. And you even attacked your buddies in Fine Gael for proposing a 2% increase in VAT. A tax which, as we all know, will hit the poorest hardest. And yet on all of these things you have U-turned. And that's well recorded. But Tánaiste, you also promised a change to the political system. You promised an end to cronyism. You promised an end to big pensions and salaries.
Deputy Keaveney, will you please?
If I could, Ceann Comhairle.
Deputy Keaveney, will you please? There's somebody speaking.
You promised to protect the poor and to bring accountability to the top. And it's on this critical test that your biggest failure has been. We saw yesterday that your proposed nominee to the European Court of Auditors has been rejected by a European Parliament committee. Tánaiste, you should never have proceeded with that nomination. You shouldn't have proceeded, and you should now withdraw that nomination. You should also realise that the days where government removes officials or rewards officials by automatically promoting them to top jobs in Europe is a thing that needs to be left behind.
Deputy, I'd remind you that we don't speak about people who aren't here to defend themselves.
I've mentioned no name.
Well, we know who you're speaking about.
We need accountability at the top. So I ask you, Tánaiste, will you belatedly now recognise and accept this reality, and will you withdraw that nomination?
Tánaiste.
I'm not quite sure which of the many accusations that Deputy MacDonald levels is the question. But let me start by saying that I'm not going to take any lecture on honesty from Sinn Féin. This government promised. This government.
Captain Nemo.
This government promised that we would get this country out of the economic hole in which it found itself in. This was the broken country when we came into government on the 9th of March last. Broken banks, broken public finances, broken reputation, broken morale. And we have worked every day to fix that and to repair that. And you know, it's not the first time, Deputy MacDonald, that you've come into this House and levelled the accusation against us that we have broken promises. You came in here and you claimed that we broke our promise about restoring the minimum wage. You were wrong about that. You came in here and you said that we wouldn't renegotiate the deal with the EU and the IMF. You were wrong about that. You came in here and you said that we wouldn't get the 1% reduction in the interest rate. You were wrong about that because we got 2.5% reduction in the interest rate at a value of €10 billion for this country. Your accusation today that we have not delivered in relation to political reform is also wrong. We cut the pay of ministers, we cut the transport arrangement of ministers, we capped the salaries of public servants, we have changed the pension arrangements, we've changed the pension arrangements for top-level public servants. We have changed the arrangements for the appointment of top-level civil servants through changes in the TLAC system. And the Minister for Public Expenditure, the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform announced last week the most comprehensive set of public service reforms that we have seen in this country. So you were wrong about that too. And on none of those issues, Deputy MacDonald, have you ever come into the House, or anybody else who's making those accusations, and admit you were wrong? Just as you will have to admit that you were wrong in respect of some of the other allegations that you have levelled here today. And finally, in relation to the nominee to the Court of Auditors, we were surprised, yes, at the vote that was taken at the committee yesterday, because we understand that it didn't reflect the discussion at the committee. Mr. Cardiff is the government's nominee. That remains the position, and as I understand it, a report from that committee will go to the plenary session of the European Parliament, and it is the plenary session that makes the decision.
Thank you. Deputy MacDonald, you have 1 minute. Thank you.
So,
sorry. Could we have a silence, please, for Deputy MacDonald?
So,
thank you.
If we're to understand you, Tánaiste, despite your bluster and rhetoric, you are the government, if you don't mind. Well, this is my opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Sorry, Deputy, without interruption, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Yours is the government that broke its own pay caps and guidelines in respect of your own special advisers. We have that on the record. Yours is the government that still allows senior civil servants to walk away with bonanza pension pots. Yours is the government, above all, and you in particular, Tánaiste, who gets very, very rattled at the very prospect that a senior civil servant might be called to account in this Dáil. You say that your nominee remains the government's nominee. Can I say to you very directly that that is not a credible position, given the view taken by the Budgetary Commission in the European Parliament? Can I say to you more importantly that that is not a credible position from a government that proposes to introduce in the short term swingeing cuts to people on low and middle incomes?
Deputy,
so I ask you again, Tánaiste, will you pull the plug on this nomination process? Will you live up to your promise of accountability within the public service? And will you give to the public confidence that at last the political system will operate one rule and one standard for all the people, and not cosset those at the very top?
Tánaiste.
First of all, there is one rule that this government applies, and it is a rule that applies equally to everybody. And that is why, from the very beginning of the life of this government, we took steps which hadn't been taken before to cap the pay of senior public servants, to cap the salaries of people in the semi-state sector, to change the arrangements which we inherited in relation to pension arrangements and in relation to severance deals. No, but you see, you keep saying, you keep saying these things. You know, you keep saying these things that are simply not true. I mean, all of these things have been done. All of these things have been done by government. And in relation to accountability, there is a rule in relation to accountability. And that is, yes, you call people to account, but you also give them the opportunity to answer for themselves. And that is something that I don't know if it's part of the culture of Sinn Féin, but that is something that you seem to find very difficult to understand. That if you make an accusation against somebody, if you make an accusation against somebody, you give them the opportunity to respond. Now, that is something that we can do here. That is something that that you do here in the committees of the House.
We did do that.
In relation to the nominee to the Court of Auditors, there was a hearing yesterday by the Budget Committee of the European Parliament. I understand that the nominee gave a very strong performance at that committee. There was a vote taken, which does not appear, from the reports that I have received, does not appear to reflect the tone and content of the discussion that took place at the committee. Now, I don't know why that was. That's something that we'll have to look at. As I understand it, it is something that that's not unusual, that committees take a vote. There is, as I understand it, a report made from that committee to the plenary session of the Parliament. That report has not yet been made, and when it is made, then the plenary session of the Parliament will make a decision.
Thank you, Thomas. Now call on Deputy Ross, please. Deputy Ross. Thank you.
Thank you, Cancula. Cancula, 7 out of the 8 nominees yesterday got through, and only 1 was rejected. And whatever way you look at it, this result was a humiliation, not just for the candidate, the nominee. It was a humiliation for the government, and it was a humiliation for the country. The question I'd like to ask is this, and it would give you an opportunity to respond to the Taoiseach's address to you yesterday in this House. The Taoiseach, in his absence yesterday, in your absence yesterday, made some comments about the night of the bank guarantee, as he is wont to do when he's in parliamentary battle with the Fianna Fáil party. And that's a fair point. And indeed, you yourself took a position, an honourable position, against the guarantee. But what I wonder is this: how can this government have nominated someone who is the sole survivor of that shameful night? The bankers are gone, the politicians are gone, the other advisors are gone, and yet the one person who survived that night, who was part of the cabal in Merrion Street, is nominated for promotion. I don't understand this. I can only suggest that what's happened is a humiliation for the Taoiseach himself, not so much for you. The Taoiseach is reported to have rung his colleagues in the EPP, People's Party, and asked them to vote for the candidate. They gave him a response which was 2 fingers, and unanimously 2 fingers to the Taoiseach. That is a humiliation for Ireland. And why is this? And it begs the question: does all that genuflection, which the Taoiseach has been indulging in with Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy, and Mrs. Merkel is allied to the EPP, is that all wasted? Is all the goodwill that we're supposed to have engendered in Europe as a result of being a poster boy completely rejected?
Sorry, Deputy,
and all they do
question,
is kick us in the teeth.
Tánaiste.
First of all, Deputy Ross's description of what happened on the night of the bank guarantee is very colourful, and it may indeed be a cabal. But we have an independent civil service, and I respect that independent civil service. And I don't think that it is right to come into this House, Deputy Ross, and to accuse an independent civil servant of being part of a cabal. The government that was in office at that time took the decision. That was a political decision. They are politically responsible for that. They brought that decision into this House. And there are people in this House who voted for it, and there are people in this House who voted against us and who have to take political responsibility for that. But until such time as we change our system and we don't have an independent civil service. Independent civil service has been at the cornerstone of the way in which we do business in this country, and we will abandon that at our peril. Hear, hear. And however unpopular it may be today or any other day, for me to come in here and to defend the independence of the civil service, I will do so, and I do it today. The government nominated a senior civil servant to be our nominee to the Court of Auditors. He presented himself at the Budget Committee yesterday. I understand, I didn't see the exchanges, but I understand that by and large there was a positive reaction to him at that committee. There was a vote taken. There was a vote taken. There was a vote taken. It was a secret ballot. That is something that we have to look at. You know, votes that are taken at subcommittees, in many cases in the European Parliament, are overturned at plenary session. We have to wait until we see what the report from that committee, the formal report from that committee to the European Parliament is. But in the meantime, I would ask Deputy Ross to respect the fact that our civil servants are independent. They operate independently of government. They are not permitted. They're not permitted, and this is an important point. Under our system, civil servants are not permitted to speak publicly in their own defence or about the matters on which they give advice to government. Now, if you want to change that, if we want to change that, and we want to have a different system, where Secretaries-Generals of Government are allowed to make public statements about what kind of advice they gave to government or what they had to say about it and become part of that political process, let's have that debate. But until such time, and that's a matter for us here, and if you want to bring in a private member's bill, Deputy Ross, to change that, bring it in here and we'll debate it. But until you do so, and until we change that, then have a bit of respect for the people that we appoint independently to advise whatever government happens to be in office.
Deputy Ross,
Thank you, Tánaiste. Tánaiste, I admire your rhetoric, but not the content, I have to say. It is absurd to try and quell debate on a nomination of this sort, which is so important. And what is important is this. Maybe I could put the question direct, because it was a government appointment supported by you. Was the nominee nominated by the government because the government wished to create a vacancy at finance and had a difficulty? Or was he nominated because he had great talents which we wanted to export to Europe?
I'll tell you whether he was nominated. All of the past, there was controversy, as you know, in the past about the appointment of nominees to the Court of Auditors. And there was criticism of the fact that nominees to the Court of Auditors previously were retired politicians. There was a lot of controversy about that and a lot of comment about it and a lot of public criticism about it. I don't know whether you were party to that criticism or not. You probably were. It certainly was commented upon. It certainly was commented upon in the European institutions. And the government decided that on this occasion, instead of appointing somebody who was a former politician or somebody who was associated with politics or one of the political parties in government or all of the other things that would naturally have brought criticism about it, we decided to appoint a senior civil servant, and a senior civil servant who fitted the requirements of that particular post. And we decided to nominate the Secretary-General of the Department of Finance, senior civil servant who would serve as the Irish representative on the Court of Auditors. That's why we made the decision. We did so because he was the most appropriate appointment. That decision stands, and all that has happened yesterday was the first stage of a process which has quite some distance to go yet.
Thank you, Tánaiste.